Hi, Steve and Caleb from Brownells, and we're back with another episode of SmythBusters. And all this week, Caleb has been walking back and forth and muttering to himself and complaining, and he's been irritable. What is bugging you?
Well, Steve, there's this very common misconception out there, almost like a cult following of people who think that you absolutely have to strip your bolt to check your headspace.
Oh, I see. You mean like taking the extractor and ejector off and all that stuff?
Yeah, so like every time I check the headspace without doing that, people apparently get very triggered and...
Triggered, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a thing, unfortunately. Now, if you don't know what Headspace is or how to check Headspace or any of that, we have some really good videos on that. So go reference those and you will get a deeper understanding of this video. But if you already know what Headspace is, if you already think you know how to check Headspace and stuff, then this video is for you.
There's more than one way.
There is more than one way, for sure. And we're not saying you're wrong if you strip the bolt every time you do it. If that's how you want to do it, that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
But honestly, I very rarely do it that way.
Me too. I mean, if you start working in a shop, you don't have time for all that.
Ain't nobody got time for that, Steve.
Yeah.
Now, when I check Headspace, like for example, when we did the video on this exact rifle build, I did not strip this bolt down. And by stripping the bolt down, what I mean here, let me take it out to show you. So on the face of this bolt, we have our extractor here, right? Then those two detents there, those two detent looking things, those are ejectors, okay?
Right.
So when we say stripping the bolt down, people are saying that you have to remove all of that stuff on the bolt, get rid of it.
Yeah.
The reason being, and I've asked some people and they have no idea why, they just say, well, that's the way I was taught. It's like, okay, fair enough. But some people say it will give you a false reading if you leave them in there. And this is where things get interesting. So if you were to ask that person, well, how does it give you a false reading? They would then say, well, it adds unnecessary tension. Okay. Whenever you're camming this bolt down to lock it,
Yeah.
to check that headspace, there's so much, like there's the angle of the bolt knob is going against the angle on that handle. Your lugs are locking into place. There's so much mechanical leverage going with you when you close it that resistance doesn't matter at all.
Plus, that itty-bitty spring on the ejector is not going to overcome the force of metal-to-metal contact at the front and back of that headspace gauge.
Yeah, not even close.
It's solid.
Yeah, so those detents in there, those ejectors will go flush with the face of that bolt. If they're not doing that, you got other issues you need to dig into. So, with that being said, you can just clip that bad boy on there, run it in with everything on, and you're going to get the same reading. So
You just got to remember to wear eye protection, because otherwise when you take it back out, you might put your eye out or something.
yeah, it's going to throw it out of there.
Yeah.
And so another part of the argument that I can kind of understand is with the extractor, if you just drop your gauge down in there, right?
Right.
There's a rim on your gauge. And some gauges like this one are cut for this exact reason. That extractor on push feed type setups, they will clip over, you gotta clip them over that rim before you can close it, right? And yeah, that's a note. I was like, it's
And
not.
some extractors handle that a lot better than others.
Yeah, I got scared because it wasn't closing. I thought I grabbed the no-go
okay.
gauge. But no, we're good. Yeah, so you got this hardened piece of steel here. You got your extractor. I can understand that you don't want to force it over that at the risk of damaging your extractor. I get it. But you can just clip it onto the bolts or use a gauge that's cut to put it in there.
Yep. Or failing that, if you want to remove just the ejector, like if you got a Remington 700, you're not going to take the extractor out.
No, you're not.
Because it's it's inside the bolt face, and it's easy to break one taking it out or bend it. But if you want to ease your mind, you can take the ejector out and just slide it under the hook in there, put it in, goes right in, nice and easy.
Yeah, and for that, mainly everything we've been talking about here, we've been referencing bolt guns. But for AR-15s and AR-308s, it's pretty similar.
Very similar because it does have a plunger style ejector, just like a Remington 700, a Savage, what have you.
Yep.
And it's got a hook style extractor, a heavy duty one. I mean, it'll slip over the rim.
Yeah.
But so by and large, I don't bother to disassemble them unless it just won't accept a gauge that way. Once in a while, you run into an extractor that just won't override the rim of the gauge.
Yeah, and especially if you're dealing with some really tight match chambers and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that aren't that are tighter than what Sammy spec is.
Yep.
Then you get really close with some stuff, and I can understand taking them out then too, just to make things a little bit easier on yourself. But
So I guess the upshot is go ahead and remove it if you want to, but you really don't have to.
you don't. There's no good reason to, and 99% of the time.
Yeah. So if you disagree with that, let us know in the comments and give us your reason behind it. Especially if you've done this a lot and you've tried it both ways. We'd like to hear from you and see what you're thinking.
Yes, give us some details on why you think that, because honestly, we really want to understand why this is such a big deal for some people.
Yeah, and theoretical hypotheses on the internet don't mean anything.
Give it to us solid.
That's right. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Leave us a comment if you want, and we will see you next time.